debate, the honourable member for Kenora.
Thank you very much, Madam Speaker, and it's my pleasure to join the debate today and on our Opposition Day motion. The Conservative Party is asking the government to put forward something and accomplish something that they have long been avoiding since this pandemic began, and that is to show Canadians a plan. We're asking the Liberal government to table by December 16th an update on how each type of vaccine will be safely delivered, stored, and distributed to Canadians, when each vaccine type will be deployed in Canada, what rate of vaccination we can expect for each month, how different segments of the population will be prioritized for vaccines, and how vaccines will be distributed to Indigenous communities, armed forces members, and veterans. Madam Speaker, there's absolutely no reason why the government shouldn't be able to provide this information to Canadians within 2 weeks. Frankly, I believe the fact that they aren't able to provide this information today is incredibly worrisome. And the Liberals know, and all of us in this House know, that Canadians have been waiting with bated breath for a vaccine. They've been reviewing the news, looking for updates on the development of one. They've been speculating on what they might do once they receive a vaccine. The government is well aware, of course, that this is key to defeating the virus, keeping Canadians safe, and keeping our economy going. In fact, this past spring, the Prime Minister himself said, and I quote, Madam Speaker, "Normality as it was before will not come back full on until we get a vaccine." I believe the Prime Minister had said this in April, yet all this time has passed and his government has done very little, if anything, to procure a vaccine, plan for its distribution, and ensure that every Canadian who wants one will be able to get one. They've been caught completely unprepared, and it's truly showing. Canada has ended up behind the United States, the United Kingdom, the European Union, Mexico, Brazil, India, and Indonesia for vaccine procurement. Madam Speaker, there are over 2.7 billion people in line before Canadians. But what's really troubling is that the Liberals not only don't have a plan to procure vaccines, but they seem to have no plan on what they will do once we finally do receive them. They have no plan for distributing vaccines to Canadians, and they have no plan for prioritizing who will be able to have access to vaccines first. In fact, Madam Speaker, in response to a vaccine procurement plan, the Minister of Natural Resources tweeted out a graphic stating this supposed plan, and it said, quote, "Every Canadian will have access to an effective and free vaccine once it's ready." Madam Speaker, that's really not a plan, and frankly, it wasn't that good of a graphic either, if I do say so myself. But these are the non-answers that Canadians are incredibly frustrated with. And as people in the United States and in the United Kingdom will begin receiving vaccines as early as next week, the Liberal government is talking about having vaccinations available to most Canadians by September. As I said, our neighbors to the south and many around the world will be getting their lives back. They'll be seeing families again. They'll be potentially reopening some of their businesses, returning safely to their jobs. They could be having weddings, graduations, holiday celebrations. But in Canada, we'll be missing many of these moments, and we'll be missing time with our families and our loved ones. Well into the summer, at this pace, Canadians will still be postponing events. They will be having to do head counts at weddings and funerals to ensure that there aren't too many people present. And the emotional toll of this pandemic is also impacting mental health, as those struggling with mental health issues, with addictions, will continue to be isolated from many of their support systems. Further, Madam Speaker, remote First Nation communities, like many in my riding, could likely have to keep their borders closed to stop the spread. Many Canadians with loved ones living abroad or even in other provinces will remain separated. Seniors will be expected to content themselves with virtual get-togethers at a time when they could use support from friends and family more than ever. Parents may worry every time they send their kids to school, and students who are unable to attend in-person classes or lack reliable internet may fall behind or fall through the cracks. Businesses will continue to lose revenue, lay off employees, and may potentially close their doors permanently. More workers will lose their jobs, and more families will struggle. Students and young people will see their careers put on hold as they graduate into a job market that is one of the worst in history. And tourism operators across the Kenora riding, across Northern Ontario, and across Canada will lose potentially yet another season. And many of the airlines that service remote northern communities will not be able to provide that critical service. Madam Speaker, Canadians are rightfully concerned, they're rightfully frustrated and disappointed with the Liberal government. Citizens have complied with public health guidelines and regulations, and they've really done their part to combat the virus. But people want their lives back, and they want a plan with some hope from this government on how we can get back to that place. Madam Speaker, I don't understand how the Liberals can expect us to be content with the knowledge that we may have an opportunity for a vaccination in 10 months' time. But unfortunately, it is not coming as a surprise to me, to many members on our side of the House, and to many Canadians. After all, the Liberals have bungled this pandemic response since day one. We know they dropped the ball with rapid testing, where an effective rollout could have avoided some of the pain that Canadians have faced over the last few months. Canadians could have been potentially safely visiting with loved ones. Businesses could have stayed open or reopened, and students could have been feeling safe back at school. And the Liberals also dragged their feet on closing the border until it was too late. In September, the health minister claimed that she was, quote, fully briefed on the risk of COVID-19 by December of last year. Yet her government sat by and did nothing for months. If the Liberals had implemented travel restrictions or recommended mask wearing when the minister and the government first knew about the severity of this pandemic, lives could have been saved, and we could have avoided the economic shutdown that's devastated businesses and families across the country. Instead, we got nothing but mixed messages and mixed signals and lectures from this government. As I've said, the Liberal government was clearly unprepared for COVID-19. And after all this time, it's clear that they have not learned from their mistakes, because we have still yet to see an all-important plan. Canadians should be looking ahead to a recovery right now, but instead, we're facing increased restrictions. Many businesses who've invested thousands of dollars in health and safety upgrades to help reduce the risk of transmission, help keep everyone safe, aren't even sure if they'll be allowed to operate come the springtime, or if it will be financially possible for them to do so, Madam Speaker. And I'm not sure exactly how much time I have, Madam Speaker, but I will sum up that the government's approach to this crisis can truly be it could truly be summed in a quote from the finance minister in this House. Actually, a few weeks ago, in the chamber, I stood up and I asked the finance minister when we can expect to see a budget, when we could expect to see a plan from this government, and her response was patience. That we needed to have patience. But Madam Speaker, I believe patience is a very privileged position to hold during this crisis. It's easy for politicians to be patient when our livelihoods haven't been impacted. But small business owners watching their lives work slip between their fingers can't afford to be patient any longer. Workers who have lost their jobs can't afford to be patient. Vulnerable Canadians who are afraid to leave their homes can't afford to be patient. Madam Speaker, Canadians have been patient for nearly 10 months. It is time for the government to be transparent, be accountable, and bring forward a real plan to guide our country through the next phase of this health and economic crisis. Today's motion will give the government an opportunity to do just that, and I encourage all of my colleagues in this House to support this important proposal. Thank you, Madam Speaker.